welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I appreciate all of you hanging out with me as we are rolling into what soon will be, hopefully, a college football weekend filled with great success. Next weekend, obviously, is the official week one of college football. We got a bunch of games going on this weekend. I'll be back with you on Monday. This is the last show of the week. A bunch of stuff to dive into. But let's start with unbelievable news on the green dildo front. Taking you into the weekend, I want to read for you one of the lead stories at ESPN.com. I am reading, this is according to the Associated Press. An Ohio man has been arrested, charged with 2 counts of assault for throwing a green dildo onto the court at a WNBA game in New York City. Charles Burgess, 32 years old, our hero from Dayton, Ohio, home of the Wright brothers, was arrested Wednesday and charged with 2 counts of dildo assault for allegedly throwing dildos on August 5th, allegedly hitting a 12-year-old girl with a dildo. Burgess pleaded not guilty after driving himself from Ohio and voluntarily surrendering to New York authorities, according to his lawyer, Paul D'Amelia. He was released on appeal until the next court hearing in December. D'Amelia, his attorney, said Burgess owns his own auto body repair shop. He has 6 kids, no criminal record, and our hero intends to, quote, vigorously fight these embellished and exaggerated charges. I'm putting out my offer for all the help that I can provide as needed for this individual who has been charged with tossing the sex toy, Charles Burgess, Dayton, Ohio. Charles, you can slide into my DMs. I will help put together a Johnny Cochran style dream team legal defense fund for you as needed. You may not need one. So that is the update on the latest on the green dildo gate. So many different stories surrounding out there. But again, man arrested, charged with 2 counts of assault. They don't charge anybody with assault in New York City for actual crimes of violence, but you throw a green dildo, you get charged with double assault. All right, so that is going on. Today, Cracker Barrel lit its brand on fire. I cannot believe that there are so many morons out there. All they need to do is understand who their brand is. And honestly, this is something, you can put up the tweet of the new logo. This is something that I am convinced I could save companies billions of dollars. All you need to do is hire me as the director of common sense. And if I were hired as the director of common sense for Bud Light, for Cracker Barrel, for Nike, for the NBA, for ESPN, I would simply say, does it make sense to do this? Look at the stock price. I shared this. Stock price of Cracker Barrel dropped around $100 million in market cap today because people who have never, ever used the brands decide that they know how to make the brand stronger. All of these companies, they hire somebody in New York or LA who has never in their entire life ever eaten in this restaurant, ever been involved in this brand, never drank a Bud Light, and they decide that they need to remake the brand, and they fail utterly because they've never actually been there. Let me tell you what Cracker Barrel's brand actually is. Cracker Barrel, not complicated. What they do is they provide good, old-school Southern cooking like you might have grown up eating that your grandma made. I grew up eating all this food, biscuits, gravy, fried catfish, whatever the most Southern foods are, this is Cracker Barrel's business. And somehow they have decided that they need to rebrand even though they have a very clear lane. And I think I know branding pretty well. I built OutKick. We've got a brand. I've got a brand. You can't make everyone happy with a brand. You just have to be authentic to what you are. And let me just kind of run through it. I eat at a lot of chain restaurants. I've eaten at a lot of chain restaurants over the years. If you're in a suburb and you decide that you want chain restaurant Italian, you're probably going to go to Olive Garden. If you decide that you want chain restaurant Mexican, you're probably going to go to Chili's, although there are more competitors. If you are in a suburban area and you decide that you want Southern food, you're going to go to Cracker Barrel. So really your market is people who like Southern food and want to have a nostalgic connection potentially to the kind of food they used to eat when they were kids. This is not complicated. Cracker Barrel's just based right up the road here in Lebanon, Tennessee, not far from where I'm talking to you right now. If they had come to me and they had said, Clay Travis, how do we go after and continue to evolve our brand? I would have said, well, you have to lean into Southern food even more. Make your food better. Make your product a better value, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you're not going to appeal to lots of people in New York City and LA by and large. Not to say that some might not like your product, but most are not. And yet, instead of making that decision, they hire a new CEO. She has no basis in knowledge of the brand. She goes and does a Good Morning America interview. Why? She lights the brand on fire. She's a disaster. She probably should be fired. Every time this happens, it's the most imminently predictable outcome imaginable, that they don't understand the basic business or the basic consumer. I don't claim to be a genius, but I understand normal people better than almost anybody in America. I used to tell my team when we did radio, hey, JBN, just be normal. Just be normal. Politicians can't be normal. I'm a normal guy. Just be normal. What is the brand? Figure out how to expand the audience for the brand without alienating the base that already loved your brand. This is not rocket science. And yet, over and over and over again, it happens. Speaking of happening, let's talk about ESPN. So Cracker Barrel blew it. I think this is going to be a Bud Light-like scenario for them. Maybe they can hire Sydney Sweeney to start serving tables in low-cut tops and try to save their brand. And by the way, I hope the old white guy on the Cracker Barrel logo. I hope the old white guy on the Cracker Barrel logo. I hope that right now, somewhere in the marketing heavens, I hope the old guy on the Cracker Barrel logo, I hope he and Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben, give me some other guys that have gotten canceled out there, but I hope the Cracker Barrel guy and Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben, I hope they are all getting together and having a good down-home meal. I hope Aunt Jemima is pulling out the syrup, and I hope Uncle Ben is making the rice, and I hope the Cracker Barrel guy's walking in with the biscuits, and I hope they're just going to have a really great, awesome meal. And I hope also with the biscuits, they're going to bring in the Land O'Lakes Indian chick. She was a looker, that chick, if I remember correctly. I hope that they're going to bring her in and let her, not metaphorically, butter the bread. And I hope they all have just a phenomenal meal. In fact, if you want a challenge on the OutKick team, go out there and put these four sitting together and see if we can create a logo of all of the canceled guys just sitting around the table together. Uncle Ben, Aunt Jemima, the Land O'Lakes chick, maybe the Washington Redskins, helmet guy, and the Cracker Barrel logo guy. I hope they can all just have a great meal and sit together in peace. That's what I dream of. But I'm talking about destroying brands, and ESPN, ironically, is a brand that has, to a large extent, been destroyed. And today is a big day because they are launching the ESPN app, which is basically just the ESPN channel, but now you don't have to have a cable subscription to get it, and it costs $29.99 a day, okay? So a month. $29.99 a month for the ESPN app. Fox is also launching an app, the Fox One app, I think it's called, and I think the Fox One app is like $20. And if you combine them, I think it's like $40. I am not the streaming expert. I will tell you this. This is me just being normal. Everybody's going to get screwed in the streaming era. This is one of the things that I will 100% be proven correct on. Eventually, all of the streaming apps are going to be bundled back together, and it's going to be cable on streaming, except it's going to cost you way more than your original cable subscription cost. And so I'm telling you, this is inevitable. It's definitely going to happen. And my big question out there is, who is the market for this ESPN product? Do we have the graphic of the percentages? I think over 20,000 of you have voted. And I just asked a very simple question. Is this going to be an app that you will sign up for? And around 20,000 of you have voted, and 96% of you said you would not sign up for it. And I still think maybe this weekend I'll write on this because I do think it's a really kind of fascinating media story. But I don't understand who the addressable market is. If you love sports, you probably either have ESPN already or you are illegally streaming games. I don't buy the fact that there's someone who has cut cable to save money that now is going to pay $30 a month for ESPN. I don't understand who that market is. I don't think that person actually exists in any kind of substantial number. Again, it's important to think about target markets. OutKick's target market is rational sports fans. It's like 90% of sports fans, right? So 90% of all sports fans is our baseline audience. What is the baseline audience for $30 a month ESPN, but isn't already subscribed to cable, but will pay $30 a month for a streaming service? I don't think that consumer exists. I just don't think there's a market for this product. Now, I think some people, sadly, will pay for this, but they won't actually need it, but they won't know better that they don't need it. Does that make sense? Like, I think some people out there, because the way that subscriptions work is people sign up, they forget that they have it, they end up paying for it for several years, and ultimately it is completely unnecessary. I think there will be some of those people who will pay for the new ESPN app and already have cable and satellite because they think they're getting something different. But I don't think there's very many of those people. I just think this is a product without a market. And I also think that eventually all of these streaming services are going to be rolled together, and all I want is one remote control. I want to be able to sit down and watch every sporting event with one remote control, which we had, which was called cable. Streaming, the other thing about streaming is, you guys know that I love to gamble on sports. Streaming is so far behind, there's a huge latency issue with it. So even if you are a diehard sports fan like I am, by the time you actually sit down and watch the sporting event, you can get texted by buddies if they're at the game. You're like 2 minutes behind sometimes. And if you really love a team and want to know if they're going to win, you can get the actual outcome way faster if you just go to the sports gambling apps, because they update way faster than many of the apps out there. So I look at this and say, there's not a market for this. And if you're a huge sports fan, I think you'll illegally stream. But also, ESPN doesn't actually have that many games anymore. You get Monday Night Football. You get 1/3 of the NBA, to the extent that you care about that. What else do you really need? SEC fans, I understand. That's basically all the reason that ESPN exists now. But because you get baseball, you get basketball, you get football year-round. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense to me that this is a product without a market. I will go to bat on that in a significant way. Okay. I think we have I wanted to talk about this video. Watch this video of this report about the collapsing D.C. crime rate. D.C. crime, 83% down in carjackings. I believe we now have gone 8 days without a single murder. Robbery down nearly 50%. This is a local news reporter discussing all of that data as D.C. crime rates continue to plummet. Watch.
When the National Guard hit the ground in Washington last week, that city's crime fight went into overdrive. And now we're seeing the impact and the dramatic reductions in crime. When the National Guard rolled into Washington last week, the locals seemed skeptical.
The crime is minimal here. There's not really a lot of crime here. It looks a little like window dressing to me.
But with the Guard on the ground, crime is on the decline. For the first time in a long time, D.C. has gone 7 days without a homicide. And that's not all. Carjackings are down 83%. Robberies are down 46%. Car thefts down 21%. And overall violent crime is down 22%.
How can anybody be opposed to this? That's remarkable. Violent crime down 22%, carjackings down 83%, robberies down 46%, not a murder in a week. This is phenomenal. And what I said, and I continue to say, is Democrats are telling on themselves here. We have an opportunity to lower violent crime in our nation's capital so that London, for instance, doesn't have 1/30th the violent crime rate as is currently the case as Washington, D.C. Do you know that? If you go to London and you walk around, fabulous city, I love it, and then you leave London, you go to D.C., you're 30 times as likely to be a victim of violent crime in Washington, D.C., as in London, England. That's unacceptable. D.C. has a violent crime rate right now that is the equivalent of New York City in 1990. And I want to see violent crime collapse everywhere. You know, I was reading this morning, I believe it was in the New York Times, 94% of shooting victims in Washington, D.C. are black. So when Trump is collapsing violent crime, do you know what he's really doing? Proving Black Lives Matter. Because no president in Washington, D.C. history has ever mobilized police like this and the National Guard like this to drive down rates of violent crime. This is absolutely fantastic. There's no Democrat, Republican, or independent negativity associated with this. And if it works in D.C., why wouldn't this work in Memphis, Tennessee, or Kansas City, or Birmingham, or Louisville? So many cities out there with massive rates of violent crime. Why would we not apply the same lessons there? Heck, why not apply all the lessons that are coming from New York City? New York City is not perfect. We can continue to drive down the overall rates of violent crime. Do you know New York City has eliminated about 90% of the murders that it had back in 1990? If the nation had the violent crime rate of New York City, we would have probably half the violent crime in this country. That seems like a really good goal. So I give credit to Trump. I give credit to all the police. I give credit to all the law enforcement, National Guard, everybody involved in this. This is a good thing. It shouldn't be remotely controversial. Yesterday, I said that I would rebrand MSNBC as MS Now. As Menopause. They're rebranding it as MS Now. And I said it should be rebranded as Menopause. And I said it should be PAWS, as in pause, like a cat's paw, because overwhelmingly MSNBC's audience is childless cat ladies. And the team made a new logo, and this is absolutely perfect. Menopause, the brand new network for left-wing political talk, is right here. Get everything you want. Your childless cat ladies are going to react like this is catnip for them. This could not be better. Menopause. Oh, look, it's a cat's footprint oh, it's gorgeous. There you go. The base of the Democrat Party will eat this up. Bit of news from college football as we get ready for college football to return today. Northwestern announced that they were paying out effectively, even though they didn't say it directly, former coach Pat Fitzgerald, and that his name had been dragged through the mud, and they had done their investigation. And what did they determine? Oh, he didn't know about any hazing that was going on at the university. All of the media that ran and clamored and demanded that Pat Fitzgerald be fired after an extensive investigation, guy did nothing wrong. Yet another person that the media drags, sports media, drags through the mud, accuses of all sorts of wrongdoing, and then when the data actually comes out, they haven't done anything wrong at all. So I hope Pat Fitzgerald is getting some form of justice here, even though the money is likely not going to make him happy when you look at the way that his name was derided. For Prize Picks, prizepicks.com, OutKick. You can play in California. You can play in Texas. You can play in Florida. You can play in Georgia. You go to prizepicks.com, use code OutKick. When you play $5, you get back $50. We're still in the preseason game. I got a couple of picks for you here. Cam Ward tomorrow. The Titans are playing against the Vikings. I may or may not go to this preseason game in Nashville. I think they're going to let him play a lot. We missed on last week's pick because you just had a couple of bad drops from Cam Ward. The number is still low, only 54.5 passing yards. I think they'll let him go at least a half, get some reps, live bullets, proverbially speaking. I think he will go more than 54.5 passing yards. Mookie Betts, more than 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Dodgers play tonight. And Mookie Betts, more than 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs combined. He just needs more than 1.5 in that collection. And again, Cam Ward, more than 54.5 passing yards. If we hit, boom, then we will be big winners. Game tonight for the Dodgers, game tomorrow for the Titans going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see, what else did I have in the roster here? I want to make sure as we go into the weekend. I didn't think this was good news. I think we may have a graphic of it. The PGA has announced that they're going to return to the Trump-Doral course, and as a result, you're seeing normalcy start to return in the world of sports, and I thought this was fairly significant with that. The Trump golf courses for the PGA, they were already hosting for LIV. They are going to be getting hooked up there. SEC win totals. Maybe let's just roll this over to next week because we don't have any SEC teams playing this weekend. We'll talk about that maybe on Monday or Tuesday of next week. But just a prelude, I think a lot of you knew, nobody favored to have more than 9.5 wins right now, completely wide open as it pertains to who's going to win the SEC this year. Okay, we got a bunch of questions. Let me also say this. Trump with a huge win in New York City. I told you on this program for a long time that Trump was going to get a legal victory, that this whole fraud claim that he owed $500 million was crazy. Letitia James takes the loss. The felony charges, I've told you for years now, felony charges are going to get tossed on appeal. It's inevitable. I question whether the sexual assault damages civilly are going to remain too. I think what you are seeing is the entire lawfare universe collapsing around President Trump. And what should happen, and I do think you're seeing this some, because I think it's why nobody's watching menopause, and I think it's why nobody is watching CNN. It's because they've just been proven wrong time after time after time when it comes to this legal analysis. It wasn't very long ago, remember, state of Colorado took Trump off of the ballot in that state. And a lot of left-wing legal analysts said, oh, Trump has committed an insurrection, and this is the Civil War statute at play, and all of that's going to make sense. And I just told you there's no way to justify this. There is absolutely no way to justify this legally, and I just keep proven correct on all of this. So big loss for Letitia James. Congrats to President Trump. The whole case made no sense. The state of New York argued that the banks were the victims here on the loans, but the banks said Trump paid back their loans with interest, and they had no issues with it at all. So this is one of the most expansive, outrageous applications of the law I've ever seen. New York court said this is the rate of interest that Trump should have paid, even though you have two parties agreeing to a loan amount at an agreed upon rate, and even though the banks were not victims in any way, New York tried to set what they believe should have been the interest rate on the loans that Trump got, go back in time, reassess what the borrowing cost should be, and make Trump pay them? It's crazy. So the courts were right to toss this out. Somebody's a big Michigan fan. These are the comments, by the way. You can click like and subscribe. You can do that on YouTube. I like for you to watch on Instagram. I'd like for you to watch on Twitter. I'd like for you to watch wherever you guys may be. This guy says Michigan should appeal. They were already penalized 3 times over this. They didn't do anything the other Big Ten teams don't do. That's why the punishment was light, and why even that punishment may get dismissed. Look, I don't know how I am being argued with here. I said nothing of any consequence was going to happen. What Michigan is getting penalized with here is virtually nothing. Maybe they end up negotiating down the $20 million punishment. Jim Harbaugh is not coaching in college football anymore. Sharon Moore, they already decided was going to not coach, I think, for Game 3 and Game 4 for out-of-conference games. All of this is, I think, just evidence that the NCAA has no power. A lot of people disagreed with me. They, for some reason, thought the book was going to get thrown at Michigan. I told you it wasn't. Tripp says, 28-team playoff is stupid. It makes the regular season worthless, just like college basketball. Can we let the 12-team format breathe? Holy crap, how is anyone taking a 28-team playoff seriously? You've lost your mind trying to endorse this nonsense. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying there are things I like and don't like about the entire college football playoff process. I have said for some time that I would eliminate the conference championship games and start the college football playoff then. So I like this element of the plan. I also have said that I like playing games on campus. And this means that 20 of the 28, I believe if I'm doing the math right, 20 of the 28 college football playoff games under this plan would actually be played, 27. 20 of the 27 college football playoff games would actually be played in campus venues. I think that's an improvement. I would go, I've said this for a long time, I would go 1-16. I would seed 1-16, and I would let every team, the higher seed, host all the way up into the championship game if it were my choice. I would start it on conference championship weekend, but I don't mind 28. And people out there are like, oh my goodness, I think it's an improvement over 2. The data has reflected that over time, the best thing you can do is make teams believe that their team has a chance to win a championship, and that's why we keep expanding playoffs in all sports. And if you look at this, my number would be 16, but I don't have a problem with 28 if they eliminate the conference championship games and play as many of these games on campus as possible. And I don't think it'll hurt the regular season that much. You say, why? Why won't it hurt the regular season? Because the people who are college football fans are college football diehards. I actually think the most interesting thing about the college football playoff is it doesn't grow. And nobody has been able to explain to me why that happens. And you say, okay, what do you mean by it doesn't grow? For the most part, as championships are crowned, there are more people watching at the end than watching at the beginning. That didn't happen that much in college football. The NBA, which I rip all the time, the NBA finals are way more watched on an average game basis than the first round of the NBA playoffs. There isn't a tremendous difference in viewership for college football at the beginning versus the end of the college football playoff. That suggests to me that for whatever reason, the college football audience is tapped out. I don't understand. I've argued this for a long time. Why do 40 million people watch NFL playoff games and basically the best college football playoff game, even the championship, gets around 20 million viewers? It seems to me that college football needs to grow the overall audience that cares about it. My thought was expanding the playoff would do that. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, the baseline number needs to grow. And when I say they play in the regular season, I don't think you're going to suddenly lose regular season viewership in college football. There are not enough of those games played. There's way too many regular season games played in other sports. That was a hell of a story. I was mesmerized. I wonder if you considered suing the Needle Doc for what was an incompetent call. Bishop Brown asked that question. I talked about how I got my throat lanced. Was that this week? Maybe Monday? I can't even remember. No, I've never filed a lawsuit. I have never filed a lawsuit, and I've never been a defendant in a lawsuit. I mean, personally. As a lawyer, I've represented people in lawsuits, but I have never actually been involved in a lawsuit. I imagine at some point, maybe I will be. I don't know. I'm approaching 50, and I've been a licensed attorney for over 20 years now, and I've never been sued individually, and I have never sued anyone individually. So, no, I didn't really think about it with that doctor. I'm glad I'm still alive. And you can go back and watch Monday's show when I talked about getting my tonsils out and I almost died. I haven't watched the NFL for years, but Cam Ward is a breath of fresh air. Isn't it remarkable what happens when a boy obviously grows up with a hardworking father as an influence? Yes. Look, dads matter. And I would argue, and I've made this argument, 90% of the societal ills that we face would vanish if dads were in the home more. And I don't think it's coincidental that the racial group with the highest level of violent crime is also the racial group with the fewest percentage of dads in the home. Something like 75% of black kids are born without dads, out of wedlock, and dads aren't at home. I don't think it's coincidental that overwhelmingly single-parent households are the family situations, to the extent that they're even families, because sometimes you don't even have a single parent, that lead to violence. And when we take dads out of the house, when dads don't fulfill their responsibility, kids suffer. Flip side, when dads do fulfill their responsibilities, then kids are tougher, they're more tenacious, they are more successful athletically, academically, everywhere. And Cam Ward is a good example. And if you missed the clip from Cam Ward, he said, hey, if my dad could get up at 4:30 every morning for a job he didn't like, then I could get up at 5. I could be there at 5 a.m. for a job that I do like, talking about how he gets to the football facility so early. And I'm rooting for him to succeed. I really hope that he succeeds. I think that's a great lesson. And if you go back and watch yesterday's show, it's about individual responsibility and whether you can be responsible for yourself or not. If you can, there is no limit to your success. If you take individual ownership for your success or failure. If you can't, or if you aren't willing to, because we all can, if you aren't willing to, if you're looking for excuses, then you're going to find them, because there's excuses that lead to failure everywhere. I give credit to Cam Ward's dad. I think the topic discussion that you saw from him is evidence of what can happen with strong dads in the home. All right. I love all of you. I am going to my ninth graders football game this afternoon and evening. Football season officially underway in the Travis household starting tonight. Cannot wait to watch his game. I will be on Jesse Waters around 8:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. So I will see all of you then. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP, I'm Clay Travis, and this has been OutKick, the show.